Hey, I want to welcome you to week 2 of my Camino. And actually, yesterday was the beginning of week 2. This is day 8 is the beginning of week 2. There we go. And today I'm going to share with you about my walk from Logroño to Navarrete. And a couple of themes I'm going to be talking about: fidelity, betrayal, and marriage. Um, when I chose to come to um, the Camino, when I felt this call, this opportunity to do this. Again, it wasn't a requirement. It was a blessed opportunity to do this. I was coming as a pilgrim. And so the pilgrim is someone who is seeking the face of the Lord. I'm seeking him. And along the way, I want to be available and open to what uh, I have loved hearing this phrase, divine appointments. Right? So divine appointments are not just chance or coincidental meetings between two people, but it's a meeting set up by God, that the Lord knows that the encounter is going to happen. And in doing so, he has set things up in a way that you're equipped with the grace you need to be able to be useful to him as his hands and feet. So my very first point to you is, as you launch out into your day, you are a pilgrim in your own life. You are a pilgrim in your own circumstances. There's a journey that you take as you move out into your day. One of the things that I really enjoy about the Lord of the Rings is that vision of Frodo Baggins, or even Bilbo Baggins in The Hobbit, that when they leave their little hobbit hole, that they step out that front door and they start going down that walkway to the street, that they are touching upon a road that ultimately touches every other road, and that you never know where that journey is going to take you. And so I love that sense of being drawn up into a call, drawn up into a purpose that is more than just yours and more than just somebody else's, but God's. And so one of the things that I desire and ask the Lord are for divine appointments. So, with that as the background of what I'm doing every day. Oh, and towards that end, one of the ways that I have hopefully prepared the way is that I've been praying for the people that I'd meet. As soon as I had made that decision to say yes to the opportunity to go on the Camino, and it was about 8 weeks, about 50 days of training and preparation and planning, I started to pray for all of the people that I would meet on the Camino. And it would be, Lord, every conversation on the trail, every conversation, sitting at table, every conversation, coming and going. I pray, Lord, for those people that I would meet, that you would bless them and that you would prepare me for them, prepare them for me, and prepare the conversation, Lord, so that you, in fact, would pour down the graces that you intend for that beloved son or daughter of yours. And so on this particular day, I was able to get out early, and I realized that this day was a little bit of a shorter hike. And now, again, I'm recovered my strength, and I'm peacefully walking at a pace that I'm not going to injure myself, paying attention to what my body is saying and respecting it. And if I'm feeling little twinges, I slow down and kind of like, okay, I'm doing all right, and keep going, or I'll stretch if I need to. And so as I was making my way towards Navarrete, I was only just a few kilometers away, just like a town away. And I realized I've got a couple of hours anyways, a few hours before I'm even going to be able to get into the next hostel. And so I'm walking down the street and I'm like, Lord, and I had been saying earlier in that day, I had taken those first few hours to pray again. And I was just like, Lord, I haven't talked to anybody and I don't see anybody to talk to. I said, Lord, I really want a divine appointment. And so I'm going down this street, and I notice on the opposite side of the street this little small area, kind of like an entryway area, where there's a church. It's not one of these huge churches, but it was a church, and the door was open, And something inside of me said, go inside and pray. And I'm like, I don't really want to do that. And I just had spent a few hours in prayer. And so I'm like, do I really have to go in and visit you, Lord? Sorry, this is my humanness showing up. And something inside of me said, go in that church. Okay. So I crossed the street and I'm walking towards the doorway of the church. And a woman, and she's in her 30s, kind of meets me as we're going into the entryway to the church that then will enter into the church itself. And I smile and nod, and she says to me, are you spending the night here? I said, no, I'm on the Camino, and I'm just passing through. I'm just stopping in to pray. And she says, okay. And so then we both go into the church, and something happened that I haven't experienced yet being here in Spain, and that is Eucharistic adoration. And I didn't know this, but I had walked into a cloistered convent. And the cloistered convent had this church attached where on one side there was a grills, right? So like kind of like prison bars. But you could see through them to the side where the nuns would sit. And as I walked in, I saw that there was a monstrance on that side of the grill. And I could hear a religious sister singing to the Lord. And she was actually not sitting in a pew, but she was like on the floor, prostrate before the Lord, singing. And it was very moving. And I just thought, Jesus, thank you. Some time in adoration. And so I went and I knelt and prayed and prayed for you. Prayed for all the folks who have asked me to pray for them when I'm on the Camino. And the woman that was there, she came and she knelt down and she was praying in adoration. And something inside of me said, I should talk to this woman. You see, I had been to church a number of times on the Camino, and anytime I had gone to Mass, I had only seen elderly women. Like, I'm old, right? I'm 59, I'm old. But like I was the youngest person pretty much at every Mass, unless there was a pilgrim younger than me. And so here's this woman in her 30s, and she's in the middle of her day, kneeling before the Lord in the Blessed Sacrament and praying. And I'm thinking, I've got time. Let me just ask if she's willing to share with me. I just want to know, what's it like to be a young person who is a person of faith and living your Catholic faith in this locality. So I'm like, well, if it works out, it works out. And so it worked out. What happened was I'm like, well, I'm done. She's still praying. I'm going to just kind of move on if she's going to just continue. So I got up, and as I got up and just started to kind of collect my things, she also got up. And so as we left, we ended up leaving the church together. And I stopped her and I said, hey, do you have like 15 minutes to talk? I said, I'll buy you a cup of coffee. I said, I am just sincerely interested in someone your age, a local Spanish woman that is coming to the church in the middle of the day and is practicing your Catholic faith. I said, I'd just really love to talk to you for 15 minutes. She said, absolutely. So we went and we sat down at this little, I said, do you know where? So yeah, right around the corner, a little coffee bar. We sat there, and we were there for about an hour and a half, believe it or not, an hour and a half. Well, luckily, she spoke really good English because she was an English teacher at the local grade school. And I started to just ask her questions like, tell me about your faith. Tell me about, your Catholic faith. And interestingly, what began to emerge was that this was less going to be an interview about me learning about the testimony of the faith of a faith-filled Catholic young woman. And instead, it was a divine appointment that was brought about because of her. Not because of me, well, maybe because of both of us, because of her. So the short of it is that she had prayed that she was going to the chapel and she was praying that the Lord would send someone from the Camino that she could talk to about her personal crisis. Okay, let me say that again. She was walking to the church to pray so that she could meet someone from the Camino that she could talk to about her personal crisis. And why, I'll tell you in a minute, but now you understand a little better, I hope, if you remember, when we first were both walking into the chapel together, she said, are you staying here tonight? And I said, no, I'm on the Camino. And I was like, oh, wow. She was confirming that I was someone on the Camino. Okay. Well, she starts to unfold. There was a second connection about the Camino, and that was that the reason why she wanted to talk to someone from the Camino is that people that are on the Camino in general end up having like this sense of just stripping down defenses, stripping down masks, stripping down like hesitancies to protect and control like how I'm going to share. So not everybody for sure, but there is a general sense of openness to be able to share a bit more about their lives and be very vulnerable sometimes about like deep things happening in their lives. And that's what I have found for sure. Well, in this particular case, she wanted to be able to talk to somebody who understood the realities of the Camino and be open to receive her sharing that was going to be very vulnerable sharing about this painful situation in her life. And in brief, it was that she had been unfaithful to her longtime boyfriend, someone that she had intended to marry, while she was on the Camino. And it was years later, only recently, that she decided to share that with her boyfriend. And it was devastating. It was just devastating to him. And it had put up some walls and it left her confused and wondering, how do I go forward? And she was willing to share all this with me. And what, in the mystery of God's plan, right? I happen to be a guy who has this sort of combination of having done church ministry work for decades plus coaching. And so I'm not uncomfortable with these kind of conversations and hopefully can provide some insight into sort of paths forward and things like that. And so it was a pretty powerful conversation. And we went down a bunch of different aspects and trails and all of this. And at the end, because she was a person of faith, she was a Catholic and she was living her faith, I said, look, would it be okay if I just said a prayer with you? And she said, well, yeah. And I said, no, I'm going to pray not for you, but with you right now. And so I just said a prayer for her right there at the outside table in the bar. And she was really moved. And at the end of it, she said, Tom, you are an angel sent from God. You are the angel that God sent me today to give me the message that I was really needing to hear. And so I thought that was just really beautiful. So I wanted to just share that with you. But two other points to that. One is, this is the third time, at least 3 times on the Camino, I have heard people share stories about infidelity in marriage. In this particular instance, this woman was the one who had committed the infidelity and how painful that was to her. And her sharing was just how deeply, deeply painful it was for her to see her beloved boyfriend suffer so much, and how she desperately wanted him to be able to forgive her and be able to move forward in the relationship. In a second instance, it was a husband who was a victim of a wife's long-standing infidelity over the course of probably years. And she didn't confess it. He discovered it when he saw hints and things and read her journal and discovered this. And to talk about heartbreak, he just said how devastating it was for him to discover that his wife was living this fundamental deception in their married life. And just in a third instance, it was about a very unhappy marriage and circumstances around that. And she just said that it was clear that he had not been faithful to her in the course of their married life, and how, in her words, she married the wrong guy. And there's more to that story. I'll probably come around to that a little later, because it happened since I made this record, since this particular day. But here's what I want to share with you. God is a faithful God, and he gives us what we need to be faithful to him. And if we fall short and betray the Lord in our relationship with him, then we do have mercy available. God's mercy, he gives us favor when we deserve the opposite. And so just at the level of our relationship with the Lord, infidelity is a deep wound in the heart of Christ. And we ought to sense that penitence, right? So there's that powerful work of a pilgrim is to do penance and to repair the damage, reparation. And I'm going to dedicate an entire reflection on the importance of penance and the different meanings of it. But just to say for now that the Lord does give us a way to repair the damage that we cause in our own relationship with him. But the second is this, that fidelity in marriage is a grace, and it requires a determined effort. It's a grace that God offers to all of us who are married. In our marriage vow, we say, I, Tom, take you, Carrie, to be my wife, and I will be true to you in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health, and I will love you and honor you all the days of my life. That vow on my own strength is impossible to keep. On my own strength. But with the grace of God, built on the rock of Christ, and this is the actual grace of the sacrament, right? The God's own divine life in us gives us the grace to do what is humanly impossible. I'm not saying it's humanly impossible to be faithful, but I am saying to love and honor all the days of your life. Are you going to really honor your wife or your husband all the days of your life? Really? All the time? So we do fall short. But God gives us grace. And so if you have been blessed with a marriage where fidelity has been at the core, be so very grateful for the pain that you've been spared, for the wound and the damage that you've been spared in your married life. It's one of the things that I'm telling you, I just am saying to Carrie again and again, God has been so gracious and merciful to us in our married life to protect us and bless us and guide us and provide for us. And I pray that for your marriages. I pray that for your marriages, because if we find ourselves in those stormy seasons and the challenges are increasing without God's grace, I can see that infidelity can become an option, and that to see the pain on the faces and to hear it in their voices, that's not something that I've heard in my own circles, in my own life and ministry. And so to encounter it multiple times here has been really eye-opening. And so pray for the grace of fidelity in marriages, in your marriage, in the marriages of those you love. And for those of you who have experienced infidelity on either side, pray to God for restoration. Pray to God for a recovery of hope and a future and the ability to restore what has been lost. It is possible. I know that folks have started to write books about this, about restoration after infidelity, and God's mercy is in power is so vital if that's ever going to happen. And that was one of my messages to this woman, was that you will not see reconciliation, deep reconciliation, forgiveness, and restoration without the mercy and grace of God, without God's power at work in your relationship. So, well, there's my reflection for the day. It's like, wow, you just don't know who God is going to put into your path in the course of a day. And in the days to come, I'll have other stories to share about other divine appointments. And so please continue to follow along. You can subscribe, you can follow, you can like these videos if they're a blessing to you, and leave a comment so that I can read them and respond, and just an encouragement. All right, God bless you.